Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. I thought today it would be fun to walk you guys through my eyeshadow palette collection. I have not done an eyeshadow palette collection video in a while. I don't even know when the last one was that I filmed. This one's going to be a little bit of a different style, but I want to walk you guys through all of the palettes that I have, and then I'm also going to start a little bit of a project pan. I'm going to pick one of my palettes and one shade in that palette to try and hit pan on, because I just really want to have more eyeshadow pans in my entire collection. So there's one shade that I have been trying to hit pan on for months, and I've kind of been doing it on the side as like a little project pan for myself, but I thought it would be fun to just pick one shade at a time to really focus on and try and hit pan on. And I think that that's a way for me to not get bored of my project pan with eyeshadow, because it's not as overwhelming. It's just one shade. So at the end of the video, I will share which one that is, but let me go ahead and just show you guys the collection. I'm not going to go in any particular order. I've got them all sitting here, so I'm just going to pick them up at random, but this one might not be in my collection for much longer. I'm honestly just trying to decide if I want to keep it, which I feel like is how I have been feeling about it since I got it, which might be a sign that I need to get rid of it, but I want to give this like a 1 week one palette and see how I like it. And if I like it enough during that 1 week to keep it, then I will. But this is the Warrior from Juvias Place. I just don't reach for it. I don't know. Yeah, but this is a very nice neutral type palette. The pans are huge in this palette, so I don't know how you'd ever hit pan on them. But this one is the Warrior from Juvias Place. And then also from Juvias Place, I have the Deuce palette. This is my favorite from Juvias. I love this one. It is unfortunately discontinued, but I still think that these shadows perform really well. I really like those. And I do have pan in this shade called Berry Mousse, I believe. Yeah. And that's the only pan that I have in this palette. So again, you can see that these pans are huge. So it took a really long time to even hit pan in this shade, which is my most common panned shadow shade, just because I do use like a nice light neutral shade on almost every look. Another really nice drugstore palette is this one from Profusion. This is the Harvest palette. This was from their Super Blooms collection. I am blown away with this palette. I did have the ethereal one as well, but I felt like it was a lot similar to the Huda Mercury Retrograde palette, which is actually what I have on the eyes today. I'll talk about that in a minute. But this one is the other one from that collection, and I love this. I think especially in the fall time, for obvious reasons, this is just a very beautiful palette, but of course all year round too. I love that it has these nice like neutrally sort of brown type shades. There's also a couple of gold options, so it's not always a green palette, but I do really like to reach into the greens of this palette. This is such a good one, honestly. This is only $10. I don't think you can beat this. This is really good and definitely one of my favorites. I was very, very pleasantly surprised by this palette. All right, speaking of green shades, this is the I Heart Revolution Mini Tasty Avocado palette. I do not use this one very often, but I love it, so I keep it. These shades are honestly really incredible. This retails for about $9, I think, and it's just incredible. I don't know if it's even available anymore. I've had it for a while. Every now and then I find myself wanting the peach palette that's like this. It's got real nice peach tones in it, but I haven't been able to find it, so I'm thinking they might be discontinued. But this palette is just so good. The shades in there are really, really high quality. Can't believe it's only $9, but I really do like this one too. Those are really nice green options. I've got a couple of smaller palettes here. So this is a quad from Charlotte Tilbury. I do have pan in this light matte shade, and I tried so hard to hit pan on that shade. And even though this seems like a small palette, the pan sizes are actually really deep. So it took a really long time to hit pan in that shade, and I'm really glad I was able to. I do really like this palette, but I don't love this shade. I've talked about that a lot. So to not like 25% of the palette is a little bit of a bummer. Another mini palette, I don't really reach for this one a lot, but this is the Essence Coral Me Maybe. I don't know why I can't get rid of this one. It's such a good palette. I just don't reach for it, and I don't know why. So a couple of these like this and the Warrior from Juvias, I really need to try and use more, but that's kind of why I'm filming this video, just to remind myself of these that I need to reach for more often, and also to see which pans I want to hit on the different palettes. I would love to use this one more. I just feel like it's a really nice classic sort of a palette if you want a good warm tone neutral look, which I've been really into lately. So honestly, I do need to use this some more. but it's a really good one and it retails for only about $4. This one is, I think, the best out of the 6 pans that Essence came out with. I haven't tried their more mauve toned ones, but out of the original 6, I think this one, the bronzed and the green palettes are the best, and this is the only one that I still have in my collection. My most recent palette, well, that's kind of a lie, I'll talk about that after this one, but one of my most recent palettes is this one from Milani. This is one of their gilded mini palettes. I cashed in my $10 birthday gift from Ulta to get this one. This is in Whiskey Business, and let me just say that Kelly Gooch made me get this. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has purchased this on her recommendation, but I have so many colorful palettes that I feel like I need neutral shades to ground it, and she suggested or mentioned that she uses this for those types of instances when she just wants either a bronzer type shade in the crease, or if she just needs some neutral shades to go with a more colorful eyeshadow single or eyeshadow palette. I have been really wanting something like this in my collection, and I plan to just keep this on my vanity full time to go with any other shades that I want to use. I'm really glad to have this in my collection, and I definitely can see myself hitting pan on the lightest 4 shades in this palette. These 2 are going to be nice to have for like a liner look, but these lighter 4 are definitely going to be my most used in the palette. I already know that. Also, as I'm filming this video, it is the 4th of July and people are starting to light fireworks today. And if you guys can hear that, I'm sorry. I'm hoping that you won't be able to. They shouldn't be too loud, but I did just want to mention that. That's what that is if you can hear it. I have this Huda Nude Light palette, and I have pan in every single shade in this palette. I feel like once I finished my Project Huda Beauty at the first part of last year, I just haven't reached for my Huda palettes. I kind of just got sick of them. If you guys have not seen that series from me, I can link it below. But for the first 6 months of 2022, I just really honed in and focused on using the Huda palettes in my collection. And I hit so many pans in those palettes. But then I just kind of used them a little bit too much and I got tired of them. So I think if I ever do a project like that again, it'll be a little bit of a shorter term, but that was a really nice accomplishment. I do love this palette so much, and it was really nice to see pan in all of them. And this is another one that I need to use more. Honestly, I need to use all of these more, I feel like, because I have too many. And I have one on the way. I forgot to mention that one. When I said I was lying about this Milani one, it's because I have one that's going to get here tomorrow. I'm gonna go ahead and mention that because by the time this video goes live, I will have that in my collection. So I just picked up the palette from Huda, that is their Rose Quartz palette. If you've been around on my channel for a while, you know that I actually used to own that palette, but I felt like the promo photos of that palette did not look the same as what it does in person. And just that it was like that when I got it and how it felt like it looked different than it did when it was being promoted, I felt very disappointed and I felt like I had wasted $70. And I don't like to return makeup, but I did allow myself to return that. That being said, I have really missed that palette for a year and a half or so since I had returned it. And I honestly really regret returning it. So that is the only product I've ever really regretted decluttering or returning, except for one other quad from Revolution that I decluttered. It was that little diamonds and pearls quad. I really missed that one. But that aside, outside of that palette, this Rose Quartz one is the only one that I've ever regretted getting rid of, and I just really missed it. So recently I saw that it was on sale for half off, so around $30, $35. So I ordered it and it's gonna be here tomorrow. So I'm gonna go ahead and count that as a palette in my collection. On the Huda note, I do have the Mercury Retrograde palette. So I had hit pan on like over half of the shades in my last one, and then I replaced it with this one when they were discontinuing it because mine was a little over 3 years old, I think. So I went ahead and replaced it with this one. So I've been loving this. I used it today and I did film this look in a 3 looks 1 palette if you want to see that. I don't know if it's going to be up before or after this one, but I think it's going to be up already by the time this one's going live. So if so, I'll link it below. If not, keep an eye out for my channel for that video to come live. But this one currently has no pans in it, as it is a newer palette in my collection from being a replacement. So I still really love this one, but again, after that Project Huda Beauty that I did, I just don't reach for it as much as I used to. The last Huda palette in my collection is the Huda Nude palette, and I have pan in this one. It's in the lightest shade, surprise, surprise, of this palette, but I gotta shout out these 2 shimmer shades right here. These are 2 of my favorite shimmer shades in my entire collection. They are so stunning, and I would really love to hit pan on one of those. So future Kirsten, please work on this palette and hit pan in one of those 2 shades, because that would make me so happy to see that. Next up, Natasha Denona. I've got 2 Natasha Denona palettes. I've got the My Dream palette, which is this one. I did receive this one in PR. I would not have picked it up, I don't think, if I hadn't gotten it in PR, but I'm so glad that I did. And if I lost it, I would repurchase it. This palette is really, really nice. I don't know that I'll ever hit pan in any of these shades, if I'm being honest, just because Natasha Denona shadows are so hard to hit pan on. They're so pigmented, which is great, but with my fair skin and my preferences, I use a very light hand. I might could hit pan on this lightest shimmer shade called Spontaneous, but even then, I just think it would take forever. So if I ever hit pan on this, I will be very excited, but I am still just really excited to have this in my collection. I do have pan in this one though. This is the Natasha Denona Glam palette, and I'm sure it's no surprise that the pan that I have is in the lightest matte shade as well. So this one took me forever to hit pan on. This was my most used palette 2 years ago. I have been way more into warm tones, so I have not been reaching for this one very often, but I still love and recommend this palette. If you're gonna pick up one Natasha Denona palette, this is still my #1. However, I do really love the My Dream palette. So depending on what your favorite color story is, I recommend either one of these. I know that Natasha Denona is pricey. I think that either one of these palettes are worth it, to be honest. I think that they're just really good. I really do enjoy them. I love the quality of the shadows and the packaging, which I feel like I've been mentioning this a lot lately, but packaging is very important to me. I cannot stand when packaging is not good. So let's talk about the palette with the most cute packaging ever. This is from Flower Nose. This is in the shade, or the palette is called the Stellar Sand palette. This is newer to my collection too, so I'm really loving this one. The shades do lean a little bit more cool tone than I had anticipated, so I'm hoping I will like this even more this winter. Seasons are apparently hard for me to think of right now, but I tend to like cool tones a lot more in the winter time, and like I said, this year I've just been really into warm tones, but I know my preferences will go back to cool tones eventually, so I am definitely excited for when that happens to be able to reach for this palette more. But I really love this palette. I'm a very nostalgic person when it comes to makeup. That's why I've got my makeup memory box and stuff. And when I picked this palette up, it's because it was shortly after my dog passed away, and his name was King Henry, and so I really loved this for many, many reasons. I felt like I needed to have really special packaging, something that was just really beautiful to look at, because Henry was so unique looking and so beautiful. I'm wearing my little Henry earring today, and my Perry one over here, but this one was Henry. So his collar color that he always wore and his leash were blue. So I loved that this had blue on it. It's got the castle, and his name was King Henry, so that just kind of made sense. And then I really loved just everything about this. I love how the packaging is beautiful, but this has a lot of like the night sky and things. And one of his last nights, we just laid out in the backyard underneath the moon and the stars, and we just took like a nap out there until about midnight, and then we came back in the house, but we all just kind of fell asleep. And I love how this little girl is like looking over everything, because that just makes me feel very happy. And then the inside being more neutral toned, these are kind of like the colors of his fur, especially these like more brown tones and stuff. So I just really loved this one, and I felt like it was the perfect little Henry palette. They just really had nice palettes, and then this one just really reminded me of him. So I decided to pick this one up as just kind of like a little nice memento in my makeup collection, because I do really like how makeup can bring up a lot of different memories. So I can look at pretty much any of my palettes and tell you about where they came from or something, or like why I got them or who gave them to me. So I just really wanted to have one that reminded me of him. And I love how beautiful this is, because I can just set it out on my vanity and it can just stay out all the time, and I can just enjoy how it looks, even if I'm not reaching for it every single day. This one from BH Cosmetics and Iggy Azalea is so cute. This is the pink Totally Plastic palette from that collection. They had different colors, but I love the pink version. This one, again, I would love to hit pan on some of the shades in here, and I feel like this one is super nice for my skin tone, because a lot of the shades are very light. So if that's not something that you would like, you would probably not like this one. But I do think that this one is discontinued, because BH has been acquired by Makeup Revolution, and I'm not really sure what's going on with the brand anymore, but I picked this one up from TJ Maxx and I've been really, really loving it. Speaking of BH Cosmetics and TJ Maxx, I picked this one up there too. This is the Hangin' in Hawaii palette. I love this one and I would love to hit pan on one of these shades. These are extremely pigmented shades though, so it would probably take me forever, but these shimmer shades and then even the lighter browns are my favorites. I love this palette so much. I don't reach into the deeper browns too often. I do reach into this one, but not these two. And then the pinks and oranges are a little bit more rare for me to reach into, but these shimmer shades are seriously next level. I think that they perform better than most of my high-end shimmers, and I would love to have pan on this one. Okay, we need to do a little bit more rapid fire, I think. I've got two of these little 9-pan palettes from ColourPop. This one is the That's Taupe palette. I do really like this one, but I've been more into warm tones. I feel like a broken record here, but it definitely has made me use this one less just because I've been wanting to use different types of shadows. And then this one is the Making Mobs. I did switch this one out with a shade from the Going Coconuts palette, but the rest of it is the original Making Mobs palette. I would love to hit another pan in this palette, probably in this shade here called Bicoastal, but I do already have one pan in this palette in this top light matte shade. So I do really like these palettes. I love the Making Mobs palette. That's my favorite between the two, but they're both really good. I've been really enjoying this one. I've talked about it a lot lately. This is a Viseart Kashmiri palette. This is like the perfect travel palette. It's so good. I don't have any pans in it, and I don't even know that I would be able to. These shades are so pigmented. I probably would hit pan in this lightest matte shade again, but this is such a good one. Very subtle though, like if you're looking for a real shimmery type shimmer shade, like real glittery, this is not that. These are a little bit more subdued and a little bit more like foiled of a shade. This one is another kind of wearable neutral palette. This is the Persona Identity palette. I've got two pans in this one. I would love to hit another pan. Maybe in one of these two shimmer shades are my favorite, but I don't use this one enough. I feel like that's just the theme of most of my palettes. I really need to feel like I'm using them more. I don't know. There's only 70 days in a month and in a week to be able to use them, but a lot of these I'm just realizing it's been a while since I've used them. That's also the case with this next one from Myra. This is the Chasing Eternity palette. I love this palette. This is one of my favorite shades in my collection. I've mentioned this before. The packaging's super bulky, but I love the color story and the formula of these shades. This is a $17 palette or so. I did win this in a giveaway from the brand, but I'm really glad that I did because it's a great formula. They've got another one that's like letter themed, like sending letters. I forgot the name of that one, but it looks really pretty. But that's the only one I have from that brand. This is the custom palette I mentioned earlier from Lethal Cosmetics. This is a little bit of a disappointing one for me just because I don't love it as much as I'd hope to. I'm gonna keep using it and hopefully I can like it a little bit more, but this is what mine looks like. And like I said, it's a custom palette, so you pick the single shades and then you can arrange them however you'd like. I just don't reach for this one as much as I wish that I did. I don't know, it's just not my favorite formula, unfortunately. This is a very expensive palette. This is from Il Makiage and Kathleen Lights. It's the Disco Fox palette. This is what the inside looks like. I do not have any pans in this palette, and I would be surprised if I hit pan on them. It's again a more pigmented shadow formula. I just have such a hard time hitting pan on shadows that are super pigmented because I use so little of a shadow in my looks because I've got really fair skin, so to create a pretty colorful or bold look doesn't take a lot of shadow. So I typically don't use a ton of any shadows other than those light matte brown shades. So it's hard for me to hit pan in different shadows, but I would love to hit pan in this next palette. This is a Sydney Grace Unbreakable Bond palette. This is my only Sydney Grace palette that I've ever owned, and I love it. This is a favorite in my collection right now. I am so glad I picked this up. I love every single shade in this palette. I'm surprised at how much I love the blue shades, but they're so fun, and I feel like this is also a perfect travel palette. While it's a little bit larger, it has everything in it that you'd want. So if you're someone that likes to do really fun, different makeup on vacation or anywhere that you're traveling, this is a really good contender because you've got pink tones, you've got more neutral kind of brown and gold tones, you've even got some blue, so it's got a lot of different options. The shimmer formula in here is amazing. The mattes blend very, very well. It's got a pretty huge mirror on the back too, which makes it easy for travel. So while I tend to travel with smaller palettes similar to the Viseart one, which you can see is just a fraction of the size of this, depending on what you like to pack, this is a really good option just because it has so much in it. I've never traveled with it, so I don't know. Maybe the shimmer shades are a little bit lighter, like they're lighter pressed in here. I don't know. Like I said, I've not traveled with it, but it's real nice, sleek packaging, and this is a real favorite in my collection right now. I love that one. This is another neutral palette. This one does have those real punchy shimmer shades though, if you're into that like glittery sort of look. This is the Examinatrix Nearly Natural palette. This one is on tremendous pre-order. I think it still is, where you have to order it like 2 months in advance, but I did that and I still think it's worth it. I really love this one. I don't wear it as much as I thought that I might, just because the shimmer shades are so impactful. Those aren't really the types of shades that I tend to reach for on a day-to-day basis, because I do work an office job and I just don't feel as confident in those shades anymore as I used to. And I think it has a lot to do with just like the professionality of my workplace and kind of what the dress code looks like there. So I don't really reach for these types of shadows as much, but I do still really love them, and I need to start wearing them more, as I'm saying about like all of my palettes. But this one's really fun. It's a neutral palette, but it's so much more than that because the shimmer shades are just so special. Yeah, I really need to use this one more. Okay, next up are my 4 Nomad palettes. So I don't have pan in any of these. So the first one is the Carthagina palette, and this is a warm tone, kind of bright palette. I do love these 2 more neutral shades here though. I've just been so into neutral shades and so into warm tones too, but I really like this palette a lot. I almost didn't pick this one up. I kind of threw it in my cart on another order, and I'm so glad that I did that. My favorite Nomad palette, you guys know, is the America's Parks palette. I really love this one. It's just so fun for like a nice grungy type look, but then there's also some different shades to kind of ground it out. And I really, really love this one. So that's my favorite from Nomad. Their newest one is the Okavango palette, and I did pick that one up. I'm so excited that they came out with a more neutral toned eyeshadow palette. I don't have pan in any of these. I would be very surprised if I ever hit pan in a Nomad palette, to be honest, because again, they're super pigmented. This last one is the Iceland palette, and I still really love this one too. It's definitely more colorful, but I love to reach into this one when I'm wanting to do something a little bit more creative, and especially when I want blue tones, I reach into this one a lot. That leaves us with 1 palette remaining. If you know my collection well, can you guess it? If you guessed it, let me know in the comments below. But that leaves the Giving Glow Pastel Dreams palette. If you were wondering, no, this did not go anywhere. I know I saved it for last, but do not worry, I will not be decluttering this ever. The reason I'm mentioning this one last is because I am determined to hit pan in this shimmer shade right here. This is called Lavender Sky. It is the shimmery purple shade in this palette. And do you see the dip that I have? I have been working so hard to hit pan in this shadow, and it has to happen. I'm so excited to hit pan in this one. I feel like any day now I'm going to hit pan in the shadow. I have been incorporating it in so many looks. This is going to be the palette that I'm focusing on. Once I hit pan in the Lavender Sky shadow, I will update you guys. I'll also update you if I hit any other pans and any other shadows between now and then. And then once I finally hit pan in this Lavender Sky shade, I will pick another shade from one of these palettes to focus on. I'm just gonna do one at a time. It might be a little bit of a shorter video type series after this like longer intro, but I don't want to get overwhelmed and I don't want to feel bored with my eyeshadow palette collection like I'm having to reach for the same thing every time. So I think this will be a fun way for me to focus on hitting pan in one shadow at a time. I would love to have a pan in every one of my palettes. I don't know that that's realistic, to be honest, because I'm telling you, like, these are so pigmented. I just don't know how I would do that, but I really want to start working my way through some of my other palettes and other shades. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed seeing my eyeshadow palette collection and also to see the shade that I am really wanting to hit pan on from this pastel palette. I hope that my update on this is not too far away, because that would mean that hitting pan didn't take as long as I'm kind of dreading that it's going to take. I'm just so excited to finally hit a pan in one of these large pans because these are huge. These eyeshadows are massive. I feel like I rarely see anyone, if I've ever seen anyone, have pan in this palette or in this brand's palettes in general, because their eyeshadow pans are just huge. So I'm really excited for that. But if you guys did enjoy today's video, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. Also, if you're not subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to do so. So please be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. If you have any other video ideas or requests that you want to see from my channel, also be sure to leave those down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.